And before we get going, here's a word about our sponsors. SDHQ Motorsports is a powerhouse 30,000 square foot facility with 45 family members reporting for duty. This single owner, single location business is based out of Gilbert, Arizona. It can handle anything from a hot rod, daily driver, pre-runner, race vehicle, half-track or Kugelwagen, or just about any other project you need help with. Their skilled staff with hundreds of years of combined experience eats, sleeps, and breathes performance. So go check them out at sdhqmotorsports.com or check them out on Insta at sdhqmotorsports. The We Happy Few 506 podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Gettysburg Museum of History, home of the Major Dick Winters collection and the largest assortment of authentic Band of Brothers artifacts in the world. Visit the free museum at 219 Baltimore Street in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, or at www.gettysburgmuseumofhistory.com, and on the YouTube channel, The History Underground, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Well, hello, and welcome along to another We Happy Few 506 podcast. This is the one today. Not that they're not all special, but this is specialer than quite a lot of the others. I'm joined by my beautiful co-host, Dougie. How you doing, Dougie?
Oh, I'm very well, Matthew. Thank you. How are you?
Good. And I know you're a stickler for this, Dougie, so I'm going to try and get this right. All right. I'm going to try and introduce our guest in a professional manner because often I don't do it properly. Okay. So our guest, very special guest, is a fellow called Michael Salomon. Now, we have a broad Band of Brothers following. So if you know your apples, you'll know that Mikael directed episodes 3 and 10 of Band of Brothers. We probably won't get onto the massive canon of his work. We'll be specific to a few things. So go and look at his incredible IMDb as well. And welcome to the podcast, Michael Salomon.
Thank you very much. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Haven't changed a bit. That's what we're supposed to say, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're supposed to say it's good to see us. You are looking effervescently young, Mikael.
Thank you.
Where are you?
I'm in Copenhagen, Denmark. Moved here about 2 years ago. The mood in the United States of America changed quite a bit, and this is my home country, so to speak. But I actually spent 36 years in Los Angeles or in the U.S. But of course, most of the time you're not in town. But I mean, that's where I was based. 2 years ago, I decided to move back. I thought that the whole tenor of conversations and the way people treat each other in the United States had deteriorated a lot.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's not like throwing a switch, but it was slowly, and it actually, I think it all stemmed from when Barack Obama was elected, and I said, yeah, we all went, yeah, this is great. There was a lot of people in the United States said, what the fuck just happened? And I think that's where the trouble started, and then of course Mr. T came in, and suddenly it was okay to lie, and I think the big I've read up a lot on it, but also of course I have my own observations, but what's missing in the United States is trust. People don't trust each other.
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference from where I am now, where, I mean, you're innocent until the opposite has been proven. But it is a whole different, without being too sappy, I think people actually care for each other in a different way. Of course, everybody has disagreements. I mean, we're all human, but the whole tenor is, the starting point is very positive and not negative. In the US, I remember I came there in '87, and it was like you were welcomed with open arms. I said, well, this would probably not happen in Europe the same way, but I was very welcome. And I look around on the set in Hollywood, and there's like 1/3 of the crew was probably not, they were probably immigrants or just came in for the job or whatever, and everybody was very welcoming. And there was nobody said, "Are you coming here to take our jobs?" On the contrary, now I felt it's very different from that, and I really realized, okay, I'm a grown up now. I think I can go back to where I came from, and part of it was also I met an old flame from Denmark, and I ran into her on a flight.
This is great.
That's a lovely story. And
Yeah,
how are you finding Copenhagen? Obviously, you swapped the sun for the rain, like we have in. I moved to Berlin from London for the very similar reasons.
really.
Yeah. So how are you finding it being sort of back in Europe?
I will say the only real complaint I have is the weather.
Mm.
No doubt about it. But Spain's close, and we've been there several times. And my girlfriend, who still is, I'm trying to marry her, but I'm different story. But we've been to Thailand a couple of times, just for the heat and get some heat. And then in summer, I mean, Denmark in summer is unbelievable. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
and food here is great. And again, people are, as opposed to the U.S., people are well educated.
Yeah.
And I think that's really at the root of it, all this upheaval now, is that in order to get an education in the United States, you have to pay a lot of money. I have two kids over there, and my daughter is graduating from college in Orange, California in May, and my son graduated from a high school in Sherman Oaks, which is part of LA.
Mhm.
Last summer, he's over here now. He's totally an American, but he's learning Danish. He went to his junior year. He spent in Spain. I managed to get him away from our home. I said, "You got to get out of this Beverly Hills bubble. It's not the real world." And he was just playing Fortnite in all his spare time. He spent a year in Spain, speaks fluent Spanish, is just the loveliest person you can imagine. Is
Wow.
sweetheart, smart. He's 18 now, and he's got the world in front of him, and he's bilingual, and he speaks Danish, Spanish, and English, or
Wow.
American rather. So yeah, my daughter, I'm gonna go to her graduation in 2 months now, and then it's done with that. But the bottom line is, in order, we were lucky. I was lucky enough to have made enough money so I could pay them about $12,000 a month, believe it or not, to have those two in school.
Wow.
And you go, no
Wow.
wonder. Yeah, crazy, 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 crazy. And no, so and then you think, what about all these other guys? They may not be as lucky as I am, and fortunate. And it's been a bit of a struggle, but now it's done, it's over, they've got their education. But then the reason I think it's also going so badly is because people are uneducated.
Mm.
And when you see these vox pops on the street where they interview people, I mean, they can't put anything on a map.
Yeah.
Geography is not. I said to my son, what's your geography classes like? My what? Oh, geography. That's something we touch upon in history classes. Oh, okay.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not. I mean,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, Stockholm's
So
the
is
capital of
he is,
Copenhagen.
is he going to continue education somewhere in Europe? Perhaps go to
Yes,
university?
he has decided to do that. It may be actually his gap year now, and then he has applied to a Dutch university.
Mm.
Um, and he was gonna go the film road, but I told him my opinion, which is don't do it. My daughter is she's getting a film education. She's attending something called Dodge College at Chapman University in Orange, California. Great film school. I think it's the third ranked film school of the U.S. But the business has changed so much, and I talked to my peers here also. I said, I'm glad I'm not starting over now because it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about that, Mikael? It's actually a question I had later, but I've sort of scribbled all over it. When you started out, um, whole other world. So you start out in Denmark, and you train to be a cinematographer or a DOP, as kind of weird know it.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty analog back then. You've got to know what you're doing. I mean, ruin the film yourself.
Yeah.
Like, can you talk us through the difference between someone, say, starting out when you did, and someone starting out now, such as your daughter, for example? Like the different challenges that they would face and what they would have to learn.
Well, as you probably as you know, I started out as a cinematographer, as a DOP, and I started out as a camera assistant. And for some reason, I knew what I wanted to do. And when I got out of school, long story short, there were like two studios in Denmark, and I just wanted to be a camera assistant. To me, that was the dream, a film camera assistant. But because some people say, "Oh, you want to be a photographer?" I said, "No, I want to be a film photographer." A film photographer? What's that? Yeah, you know those movies you see? They're not shot by photographers; they're shot by cinematographers. Oh, that was the level of awareness about this job. Now today, I think one of the good things and one of the bad things is that anybody can get an image down. You just lift your iPhone and you have an image. You're a genius. But in the good old days, I hate to say that, but so as a cameraman, I was the only one who knew what came onto the film, and then the next day when you watch dailies at lunch or at the end of the day, you were always sweating a little bit, and everybody else, nobody knew what you were having, and the director turns to you, "So how was that?" "It was great." "Okay, let's move on." So there was a lot of trust again, and now, as you probably know as well as I do, there's like 3 monitors and 6 people, and they all have an opinion. It's too dark, too bright, it's this, it's that. So it's a little bit of a committee, and some of the fun, I think, it has gone away in that process. But shooting film was great.
Yeah. And some of the jeopardy too, because I mean, you'd have to know how to light it. You'd have to be sure about what you were doing. Because when you watched it back, if you had lit it right, it was just
Right.
Yeah, well, you have to make definitive decisions, don't you? But that then have consequences. It's not like now you can do everything in post or you can adjust everything on the fly. Back then, you had a set
Yeah,
up, and
yeah.
then that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, and the thing is now you shoot the raw materials, and then as you know, you can go in and reframe and do all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff with it, which is of course great. But it's funny because some people still prefer to shoot film. I will say I embraced digital when it came out. After we did Band, I did several series all on film, and we came to a point in the US where there was an actor strike, and part of it was that you can't shoot film, but you're okay to shoot video, as they call it, video.
right.
Okay, so so I went to Sony, who was the producer. I said, "Look, I've actually been working with Ariflex in Munich. They are developing a digital camera. Sony had a digital camera that they used for news. It was a long thing and with very little sensor. And what that did was that because of a small sensor, you use short focal length and everything was in focus, which is of course the opposite of what you want today. You want a nice blurry background, a bokeh. But yes, I know areas working on that, and Sony had their own camera, but it wasn't ready for prime time. So I spoke to the guys in Munich. Yeah, you want to come and do a test? And at that point, the test was on a big cart, and there were all kind of boxes. That was how they do it, and then they minimize everything when they agree what it should be. Then it's done into small elements. That was called the D10. And we actually shot a 6-hour miniseries that I'm very proud of called The Company. Well, Alfred Molina, Chris O'Donnell, and Michael Keaton. And we shot in Canada and we shot in Hungary for 4 months in the winter. And then we shot in Puerto Rico. It was about the CIA from the 40s up to the 90s. And the fun thing is that we actually shot it with the D10 as it was called, and we had 2 technicians from Aeroflex with us on the whole trip because we had all kinds of problems that they had to solve. It was really a maiden voyage for them, and then when we were all done, and at that time the sensor, film sensitivity was like normally 50 ASA or 100 ASA, something like that. This one, the sensor on that camera was 50 ASA. It was like shooting old-fashioned Eastman color. We needed a lot of lights, but it was still digital. And so I still remember when we were, not all the actors were on board, but what we were doing initially, of course. And we were doing a scene with Michael Keaton up in Canada where he's making a speech, long speech. And he looks over at me and said, how was it? I said, great. Do you want to go again? Yeah. And then he stopped. Aren't you going to reload? No, no. Just keep going. What? And he loved it. So, of course, the editors hated it because they got these hours and hours.
Yeah, tons of yeah.
But that was the big revelation, and the great thing was we were awarded a lot of things, but the one I was most proud of was my cameraman Ben Knott, who's an Aussie. He won the ASC award that year, and everybody would, what happened? Digital, and that was the forerunner for the Alexa, which I'm sure you've heard about.
Yeah.
That was the Alexa prototype.
Wow.
So
So that was the beginning of it, really. So you kind
that
of
was
helped
certainly,
introduce it to Hollywood, essentially.
everybody said, "Whoa, this digital thing could actually work." So in a way, but I remember Ridley Scott was my producer, and he came up to Toronto and came to the set. I don't think it really sunk in for him also what we were doing with the camera, but he comes over and he looks at the monitor. He's, what is that? It was, beautiful color, 17-inch monitor. And before that, we'll have those small shitty monitors flicker on them. I said, I want that, says he. And then you have to shoot digital. I'll shoot digital. No problem. And actually, right after he started on a 3D show, I can't remember which one it was. It was shot in 3D. And I don't think he's looked back. He shoots everything digital.
Wow. That's a great story. That's the beginning. That's the change, the actual point of change.
Yeah. Anyway, and
And that was just, was that just after, but was that the job you did after Band of Brothers?
No, I knew you were going to ask
Later.
that. I had the worst memories. I'm actually looking at
Probably,
my.
I think I've got it here. It's 2007. I don't know if that's the release date or the shooting date, but the company was done there. It was a few years later, wasn't it? A few years down the road.
Yeah, I think there was something in between. I think I did something called The Glimpse of Helmet with uh, Jimmy Kahn,
Mm.
and I can't not even look at it. Let me see here.
Yeah.
That's television.
Yeah.
Six.
So what was it like? So one of the questions we always ask, well, the first question we usually ask is, what was your first introduction to the show? Who approached you and how did all that happen? And when did all that happen for Band of Brothers? When did you come on board?
Actually, it was very painless, at least for me. I had, let me think here. I think I'd shot, what had I shot?
You'd worked with
I shot always for Steven Spielberg. I shot always for Steven, and it was a feature I took over from a director they fired, and they were shooting in Africa, and it was called A Far Off Place, and it was Reese Witherspoon in the lead, 16 years old, and I got a call. I kind of drew a line in the sand. Okay, I'm not going to be a DOP anymore. Now I want to focus and see if I can get some work as a director. And I was offered by Frank Marshall, whose first feature I shot, Arachnophobia, and he said, I'm doing a live, we're going to shoot up in Canada. It's about this football team that crashed in the Andes Mountains in South America. And will you want to come and do it? You've done a lot of sand, you've done water, you've done all that kind of stuff. I said, shouldn't you do some snow? I said, Frank, I've had my snow in Denmark, believe me. But I hadn't made up my mind. So the reason I'm telling you that is one day after that, and when they started shooting alive up in the glacier, I got a call from Kathy Kennedy, who says, Mikael, we have some problems in Africa. Go talk to Steven. So I called his office and they said, go to Disney and watch some dailies of the show we have going. And it was a far off place. And I had actually read the script a year or two before and told Kathy if anything ever came up for that script, there was nobody on it at that point. I would love to be involved. And they hired this other guy. I said, okay, well, that's par for the course. So I get this call, and Steven says, look at these dailies, look at some dailies and come talk to me. So I looked at 4 hours of pretty miserable stuff for a lot of reasons. And then this is on a Saturday, and long story short, Tuesday I was in Africa directing and had let most of the crew go. I had because that was one of the problems. It was a French director, and he had brought a gaffer on as the DP. Had never DP'd before. There were problems with the actors. Blah blah blah. The bottom line is, when I came down there was tears all over the place. I flew down to Zimbabwe, and okay, so look, I'm just here to try and get you going again. And you know how it is in a situation like this. 3 days go by and everybody goes, oh yeah, I remember that. That was the other, and people are just focusing on the work.
Did you have to reshoot anything that had previously been completed?
Well, actually, it's funny you're asking, because Steven said, you watch 4 hours of dailies, and we got them a 2 weeks delay because it was Africa and they couldn't. You had to send it to get processed in England and then on to Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, they look at 1 day of dailies and they go, no, okay, well, give the guy a break, and then a couple of more of those days. And then they finally say, this is not good. And then another week goes by. So they've been shooting for 2 weeks down there. And so Steven said, what do you think? I said, there's a reason you're replacing him, right? Yeah, you're right. Okay. So, but then you have to start as soon as you come down there. So I was scrambling. So Saturday, that was that conversation. Tuesday morning, I was directing in Zimbabwe.
Wow.
Yeah, replaced 2 of the actors too. And of course,
Really?
yeah, there were problems. I mean, there was a lot of things. This was I can't remember which month. It was really cold in Africa at night. It just as warm as it gets in the daytime. In their winter, it gets freezing. And they had a lot of night sequence with these 2 kids. Ethan Randall was his name. Ethan Embry, I think, is his name now. And a lot of what I looked at was 2 kids sitting like this, freezing in the middle of the night. And they had maybe 4 10Ks with them, and they were shooting anamorphic, where you need quite a bit more light. So Steve, are you gonna still keep shooting anamorphic when you start over? Say, yeah, it looks great. Yeah, but no, it'll be fine. So I ended up shooting those sequences day for night instead.
Right.
And that worked great. The kids were warm, and so that went really well. And then it was pretty smooth from there. And we actually finished on schedule and time.
So when Band of Brothers came around, you were one of his first calls?
Yeah,
Reliable.
I don't know if I was one of the first. They'll never tell you that.
Yeah.
But he actually offered me to direct Zorro after.
Okay.
He had seen the cut of Far Off Place, and I prepped on it for almost 2 years. I was doing commercials to stay alive, but the story was basically that there was TriStar Columbia was going to do it, and I went there with, oh God, what's his name? It was so bad. My name, the guy who produced Schindler's List, he was my producer on it. Oh my God, and he's not with us anymore. But we worked hard on schedule and budget, and we went up to TriStar and said it's going to cost 45 million. No, can't do that. 35. Okay, so we went back to the drawing board. Branko Lustig was his name. We went back, worked on it for a while, get back again, said, look, we really can't get it under 45. And then it was like nothing really happened. I said to Steven, would you mind if I bail because I need to get going on something else? He said, no, go. you have my blessing. And he put in a good word for me on a show called Hard Rain. So I ended up doing that. But what I learned was, I think, what's his name? A Spanish director. I'm bad with names. He came in, exactly the same thing happened. No, no, he bailed. As then Martin Campbell went in. I said, I can do it for 35. And as far as I know, the movie cost 50. So, so I learned a lesson there, lie, lie, lie.
Yeah.
So but he did a great job, but it was a little, I could have done it, I guess, but we were just being honest.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not too much of that. In retrospect, it sounds kind of crazy to think of Hollywood as an honest place, but I suppose when it's your own job and your own career, and I guess and also you were just starting directing then, weren't you? Really, you
Yeah,
just
no,
made
I
the
was
switch.
early
So I
on.
guess,
But then he remembered, I guess, and he called me up, and they were on the way at that point with the first episode. What was the name? God, you know that better than me.
yeah. But who directed the first one? You.
Phil Allen Robinson.
Thank
Oh,
you, thank you.
so
Yeah,
they were
Phil.
already shooting that when you got the call, or when you flew over, or
I can't remember that.
yeah,
If I believe they were at least in just before they were pulling the trigger, at
yeah.
least that, if not further.
I can't remember how long the blocks were, Matthew. How long? Because they were shooting two eps at once. So there's a block, 5 blocks of two. So,
They were they overlapped by about a week or so.
right.
Red team and blue team. So when Phil was doing one, they were also Richard Longcrane was doing two after about a
Yeah, that's
couple.
right, yeah.
And then Mikael came in to do three, and then they did fives. It all sort of overlapped. But I
Yeah.
guess in Mikael, to you, once you've got this gig and you're coming over to do episodes 3 and then later 10, what was your prep like? Had you done any military stuff before, and what was the remit? Was it go watch Private Ryan? It's going to be a bit like this, or were you given?
No, there was one specific. We had a meeting. I think Kathy Kennedy was there, and Tony. No, Tony was already in London. Um, and they said, "How would you like to?" I said, "I'd like to." And so it was very like, okay, I can't. And we had a shorthand because I'd already shot Arachnophobia with Frank and always with Steven, so I didn't have to. I mean, my demeanor is what it was. It was more the technical. They started asking me technical things, and I remember Steven said, "The only thing I'm telling you, no slow motion." Okay, it's not that kind of serious. It's not slow motion death and all that. I said, okay, sir, yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you remember, but that episode with the spears where he's supposed to guns down everybody.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
shot in slow motion,
Yeah.
I shot in high speed, and that had just finished it, literally called cut. When somebody said, I think that's Steven's Range Rover. He just landed from LA. He's coming over to say hello. I said, oh. So he came
Oh,
over. How's it going? Big cigar. And I'd never seen him with a cigar before, so that I registered that. And I said, it's been going great, Steven. I have to show you something. I showed him on the monitors. And he said, that's fucking awesome. Okay. So I thought I was going to get a spanking.
You shot the scene where Blythe, he has the hysterical blindness, and then he starts to see, and he starts shooting. Where
Yeah,
the sound comes out of his M1, that's in slow motion as well.
that is slow motion. Yeah,
You were naughty twice.
yeah, but that was an explanation for that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have registered that thing.
Very,
If we hadn't shot 120 frames.
Mm.
very good. Good.
And that was the one other scene I shot in slow motion where they brought it back to 24. It's where, can't remember his name, where he throws a grenade through the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick Warden, Welsh, when he runs up and does this brilliant collapse
Yeah.
down in front of the wheel. It's a brilliant little sequence, that. Yeah.
And that they brought back to 24. I said,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to do it with the other one, but he left it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny because I don't know whether you've ever had this, Doug, probably on your motorbikes and stuff. But have you ever had moments of incredibly high adrenaline where everything does go into slow motion?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So,
be
Alex,
in a car accident for sure.
Yeah.
I've been in a couple of those.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I think that's why it works in that sequence, isn't it? It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, your attention is just geared. So I mean, I experienced once we crashed in a helicopter. It was the same thing. It was really,
Crashed in a helicopter?
yeah. No, I've done that a couple of times, believe it or not. Yeah.
you got
So
to going up in helicopters, Mikael.
Oh God, how
I
what
love
why
helicopters. I've
was
done
it
so much.
shooting or was it getting a lift somewhere? What were you
No,
doing?
no, no. That was shooting actually. Well, it sounds very dramatic. I guess it was too. One was shooting commercial for Princess Lines up in San Francisco. We were gonna get a shot of the um, Golden Gate. We were flying through the Golden Gate, and then they were gonna put in a cruise liner in the background. A simple shot. And my good friend Bobby C, who was the pilot, I've done a lot of work with him. Also, I worked on Congo for Frank Marshall to shoot all the aero stuff for that. And I was busy doing the West Cam thing and do I don't know what I was doing, but then I feel the whole thing goes. I said, I looked up, and said, Bobby, what's going on? It's a little shaky, and I saw his. You sit in the back seat with the controls for the West Cam, and I could see over his shoulder all the
Needles and
dials were going to
dials.
red. I said, what the fuck? I said, we're. I said, there's a little. And he knew that, of course, being a professional helicopter pilot. There's a little landing pad next to the Golden Gate Bridge, but you can only use it for emergencies. I said, "This is an emergency,"
Oh,
and he had to sit it down. Came down so hard that it basically totaled the helicopter. Because
wow.
and what had happened, he told me later, is that the vent or whatever the valve that controls the gas, the inflow of fuel, for some reason had just gone boom and just sprayed fuel into the engine at full speed. So he had tried to control it with the brake, I guess, or
Wow.
they have a brake on the rotor too, and we were lucky, really lucky.
Yeah, they
And
don't now with these little drone cameras, there's not much helicopter action for directors
oh,
anymore,
that's
is
the thing. And
there?
also, Bobby, I worked with him on Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole, and we shot over in Dingle in Ireland. And the very opening shot is a shot of the ocean. And I wasn't operating because we had something called the space cam, and the guy who had invented it, they had promised us they would make a mount for our 65 millimeter cameras. We shot that in 70 millimeter, 60, so you shoot 65 then. Um, and they hadn't really finished this. He said, I prefer if I operate. I said, yeah, as long as we get a little video, I don't mind that. So they went out. It was really nasty weather. We had a second helicopter with us. This was Ron Howard that directed that.
Yeah.
And it was basically just Ron and me seeing, it was freezing cold. So they sat in their cars. Ron and I was standing on one of those cliffs down there. So we couldn't see the water just down below. But I hear Bobby, and I said, Bobby, how's it going? I said, nothing. And he said, I'm going down. I said, what does that mean? That was the last I heard from him. So we run out there. As we come out to the edge, the helicopter's already on the water and it broke in two.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And the operator, the space cam operator, he got picked. We had a second helicopter following them because the weather was so bad. But he followed and he threw a rope down to the camera operator and Bobby C. They pulled him out. They couldn't get him out because you can't just pull people up, but they
Yeah.
dragged him into the beach.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and Bobby got came out of the water like a cork way out there. And he later told me that it was the seat as a floating device that had actually the cupola there had cracked, and the seat had pushed him up, and that was how he got saved basically. And he when we finally got hold of him, we formed a line because you couldn't walk there. It was wet, these wet rocks. It was a real ankle breaker. There's actually there's a book about it and about the movie, and that's a whole chapter in the book about what happened there. But
Wow.
he got a big gash in the back of his head and was blue when we got him. But
Yeah.
no, they didn't. They both survived.
Yeah, very lucky. Very
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah,
God, filmmaking seems to be a lot more exciting back in the 90s and the 80s with all this sort of
yeah,
You
stuff
have
because everything was manual and everything, yeah, and everything was
yeah.
practical, and you had to be up there with, and all the
Uh,
big directors of the 80s, having 15 cameras going at once or whatever. There must have been
uh,
mayhem.
yeah, when we did Far and Away, we had 9 65 millimeter cameras
Yeah,
going.
that was a big movie, that, yeah. It
Yeah,
was a good
yeah.
movie. I watched that. I haven't seen that for years.
yeah, it's good.
No.
Yeah.
It just if you can hold your horses just a little bit more, there's a brand spanking new Blu-ray coming out in 4K. Because I just did an interview with everybody that was involved, and they rescanned it, and I hear it's beautiful. They sent me a sample, but I can only see it on my screen. So
Yeah. Oh, wow, really? Oh,
yeah, so that's coming out very
yeah,
soon.
that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So getting back to Band of Brothers, then how? Because it's kind of strange that you did episode 3 and then you did 10 as well, where we shot most of it in Switzerland. How did that come about? Did someone else pull out, or was you always slated to do 10?
No, no, someone else pulled out. That was Steven.
Yeah, that's what I know. He was down to direct one of them, but I didn't know which one it was. Matthew, did you
Yeah,
ever
I
do?
think it ended up with him wanting to do 10 because it's obviously the finale. And he calls me up one day and says, "Look, uh, I'm going to do AI. I'm going to start prepping, and I really like what you did on 3. Would you like to do 10?" And you're like, "Sir, yes, sir."
Yeah,
So that was great. I mean, there's such a that was a great moment because you
yeah. Can I ask you about that, Mikael? Because I'm not quite sure how to frame the question. Did Stephen have an influence on how you shot 10? Because it definitely has a very large cinematic end of the arc feel to it, especially that baseball game at the end.
yeah. I mean, one thing that Steve said, which was more in general,
Hmm.
was he said, and I can say that because, well, I'll tell you why. He said, "Don't forget the wide shot,"
Hmm.
and what he meant by that was, I won't forget the wide. No, he said you have to show the geography of
Mm.
what's going on. It was like quarantine. Show where they coming, where's the road, where's this, where are they going? He can't, but and he actually, you can cut that out, but he actually cited Michael Bay. He said all is shaky cam, nobody understands where anybody is in space, what's going on. He said you have to show people where they're going, and I mean not rigidly, of course, but you have to. I think it was such a great advice. I always think about it. I said remember the geography. If
Mm.
it's important, that is, and it is in a thing like quarantine. I thought the geography was really important of how they entered the town because this was very close to how they actually entered town.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We run tours. We run tours ourselves, and a lot of people do tours, battlefield tours, and do Carentan. And yeah, I mean they use that episode as reference. They'll be like, in episode 3 when they come up and over and they run down, and you
Yeah.
know,
Hiding in the ditches and getting
Right,
away.
right.
use it as a frame of reference. So the geography clearly is very well done.
Mm.
Funny thing that I can't remember. It was an operator on another show later. He came up and said, "Have you seen Call of Duty?" See, Call of, what do you mean Call of Duty? That's a game, isn't it? Yeah, it's a game. It's a game. Have you seen that? I said, "No, no. I think my son plays it." I said, "See, just so you know, it's a huge ripoff from Quarantine. The way it progresses, yeah, and apparently, and this is only hearsay, they actually got a sign off from Steven to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So and he showed me some screenshots. I said, "Well, that's a shot we did." I mean, where it's carrying him on the back and it explodes in the background. A couple of other things from the top of the ladder. You look out, you saw the what do you call it? The mortar hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the marshes.
It was just like this. Oh my God, where's the royalties?
Wow. The first Call of Duty. I did not know that. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I tell you a funny story, Mikael, which you may or may not know? Stop me if you know this, because you shot episode 10 and you shot the beautiful scene where the war's over and everything's starting to wear off and Winters goes for that beautiful swim in that,
Uh-huh.
and Nixon comes down and all the rest of it. And there was a note back from the Winters family about that, and which was, it's brilliant, but Dick couldn't swim.
Really?
Yeah.
Never heard that one. That is
The thing
funny.
is it's such a great scene, and it's
Yeah,
interesting
yeah,
what staying with the master, you know, because you've got the mountains in the background, the lake,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
station, the you've got nature there, which
yeah.
up
We did a
until that
long belly
point,
shot from up high, going past the trees, following him in
yeah, it
the
was
lake.
so lovely. And
Yeah,
that's one of the scenes I
oh,
remember
that's
the
funny.
whole show because all we'd been seeing is towns, rubble, buildings, and then you
Yeah,
really got this sense of peace,
yeah,
like from that one scene. I can picture it in my head right now.
yeah.
It's
It was
really
very
good.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There you go.
really good.
There was
Artistic
no,
license.
yeah, no
Yes,
malice.
sir. Here's
Was,
my license.
I think he,
I had no idea.
yeah, he and his family appreciated that we were making a show, and there was a
Yeah,
lot of said, and then it got batted back, and they were like, Dick, it's a show, and he always was, was like, it's fine, I understand it, but that one, that always makes me giggle that he couldn't swim.
how long?
How do you, when you come on to a miniseries and you're say, you're brought in like you were in Band of Brothers to do a couple of episodes, like a block, like most, like a lot of directors are.
Yeah,
What's your process with dealing with actors? Because obviously you're dealing with everyone that's already bonded. They're already in their rhythm, some of them. They already kind of know what they're doing. What's your kind of philosophy with that? Because you don't want to upset anything, but also you want to get what you need done. I mean, what's
yeah.
your approach?
I tried to right away to reset them in a sense. I said, hey, you guys know your character better than me. So let's start with that. And then you can teach me what you think should happen here. Let me take care of the blocking and the story is what it is. And they said, so I never really got one of those. My character wouldn't do that. Okay, okay. And I hear you and I respect that. When you're gonna go on to, I mean, Band of Brothers was different in the sense that it felt, both episodes it did felt like I was doing a feature. And there was nobody ever came down. I mean, even on features or TV sets, there's a lot of people around the monitors these days, but nobody ever came down and said, "Hey, shouldn't you do this and that?" Or you don't have enough coverage, you don't have too much coverage, or TikTok and all that. I think Tony left us alone. That was nice. Nobody ever bothered. And
And had you seen any of the dailies from the first block, and had you stepped onto the set at all? Would you
I had,
like no?
and that was really interesting because you probably heard that it feels like is part of a big plan, but in reality, every director did what they felt they should do. I think
Yeah.
no, I mean, I talked a little bit to God, what's his name? He
Say
shot
that.
he shot two also. Nutter.
Oh, not David Nussey. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Got five. Yeah.
but it's crazy that the show doesn't feel like 10 different
Yeah, it
directors.
doesn't. Yeah.
Oh,
It
no, that's what I
has,
mean. It feels like, but I think the whole, I mean, everything was there, of course,
yeah,
and again, the characters were the characters. I mean, I only one time. The only real controversy was Matthew Settle. I had a
Judging by our reaction, this does not come as a surprise to us.
no, no, but the story with him, I mean, I kind of enjoyed that story in a way. And we were shooting a night shoot, long dolly move at night. So I'm sitting at the beginning, phones on, and cut at the end there, and then he starts to talk to the other actors. Well, we should do just this and that and that, and then we came back to one again and said, uh, maybe you should let I can't remember what I said. Something you should leave them to do what they think they should do. So take two. Fuck, he did it again. So I went down to him. So mad too. What is that line you have where you say blah blah? Oh yeah, that's blah 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 blah. So I said to the other guy, I can't remember. You say that line. That's your line now. You can't do that. I said, watch me. I said, one more time, I'll take another line from you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they loved it, the other guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Now
I
he
remember.
laughed the right thing. I said, that's my rice bowl.
Yeah.
I
That's a
remember.
really, so that's your technique. That's a really good technique that cuts through someone with a kind of a bit of a bless his heart, but a bit of a narcissist kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done it before or since, but it
Really? Oh, wow. Yeah.
no, but it kind of felt right because it didn't really matter who said the line in the context. If it was, of course, if it were a story between the relationship, but then it would have been a different thing. I probably couldn't have done, but in this case, it was just perfect for that.
Yeah. No.
Because I can remember doing episode 10. It's either the scene where Grant gets shot and then me and Matt settle and I go and get the doctor and all that business, or it's another scene after it. And we did a little rehearsal. We did this. We did a cut of it, take of it, and Matt Settle came up to me and, hey, you know when we do this, and all I could hear is Mikael's voice go, Matthew, stop directing the actors, I'll kill you.
Said that? I don't remember that. Apparently he did. I mean, you know what? The bottom line is he could have had a brilliant career, that boy. I, I mean, he was super handsome. He did well on that thing, the submarine thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I can't remember what it was called. And
you
everybody, this guy, but he did it to himself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
It's often reminded me of my daughter in that I can scream at my daughter until I'm blue in the face, and she just looks at me and then carries on doing exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, that's Matthew Settle. Yeah, bless his heart. Yeah, but I remember his kind of mood when we were shooting 10 because I had a little sequence with him when we're going, we're going to go to the Eagle's Nest. I come in and come out and before we shot that scene, I do remember him now that you said that coming up to me going, well, I think you should do this. And I think, well, why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? And, I kind of just got this really heavy sense from him. And I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I found it quite challenging, really. But
But
yeah,
it's also because I think most of you guys were sort of behaving like soldiers in the sense like we'll do what we're told and that's it.
yeah.
Then it suddenly started to, oh, you know what? So I have said that line to somebody else actually. Uh, I said, when you get your own big show, you direct, okay?
Yeah, brilliant. Were there any filmmakers from the past that you drew on as inspiration for Band of Brothers at all? Any of the sort of old John Ford stuff or any of the old documentary stuff, or did you just have a feel of it straight away? Just like I know what I'm going to do.
I can't say always that I know what I'm going to do. I've learned from the best meeting from Steven that
Mm.
I ad lib a
Mm.
lot. Well, I come in with a plan usually, and then I set up the actors and we say the lines, and then I usually ask them, well, what do you feel is the right thing to do here? What would make you comfortable? I had an idea of doing this. Some actors go, say, yeah, I'll do that, and I'll stand on the mark and do it. Other people say, well, would you mind if I went over to the window instead of this? And said, then I look at the DP, what do you think? Yeah, no problem. So I want to be open to what the actors feel about it because I know they probably spend a lot more time than I have pouring over the lines,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and I'm much more into it. So I don't want to come in and like pop their bubble, and steamroll them. Not at all.
Mm.
Um,
And so when you were shooting, when did you get to sort of, at what point did you get to kind of edit? Where does that start? When does start stitching it all together and give it an edit? And you're obviously you go to the editing studio as well because you have to complete I don't know if it's changing as time goes on, because there seems to be so many like producers of different levels having their feedback coming in, and directors that I know, they deliver an episode, and then when they leave, they know that's going to be chopped something completely different and
That didn't happen
on
on
band.
Band of Brothers, not at all. I don't think it happens a lot. I mean, the thing is, for Directors Guild in America, you have a right to have your first cut. You
Right.
have a certain time to have it,
Yeah.
and usually, if there's a usually, the producers look at that and say, "This is great," or they say, "This is great, but can we try something else?"
Mm.
And I've had that with some studio heads also, where this Michael Wright, for instance, I don't know, he's the MGM guy right now. He sent me a memo and said, "No, try to do this, that, and the other, and if it doesn't work for you, don't worry about it." And
Mm.
that takes the pressure off in the sense that, well, and my theory is always, if there's somebody on a test screen who said, "I have a problem, I didn't understand, what was he married to her or what?"
Mm.
If he has that problem, it's relevant, and you should look into it, see if there's something you could do about it. Or maybe just wasn't paying attention, then fuck him. But otherwise, I think you need to listen to what people have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
It's definitely a huge collaborative process, isn't it? I mean, and how do you like moving back to Europe? So I mean, we all know that, loads of US shows are shot in Europe and it's not kind of going to be a big deal, but how do you feel about, I mean, obviously you're not starting from scratch here. You've got a long, very long and an illustrious career, but I mean, what's the sense with the kind of things that you're looking at possibly doing now, and what's the feel of everything around you now? Are you kind of excited to be back in Europe and perhaps shooting some different stuff?
Excited to be back in Europe, and yeah, very excited to be back here. It's a whole different lifestyle, of course. It's a completely different, but I mean, I knew it from then, and you just get lulled into the lifestyle in Los Angeles, which is a whole different lifestyle. So, when I came back here, I really didn't think I was going to do anything here, but I'm being asked about a couple of things. One is a TV series, low budget TV series. The other thing is a feature. But I always thought, I worked a lot in my life, and I always thought, if I don't get a call sheet that says 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, I'm gonna die. But I have to admit, it's been really nice. I spent time with a woman I love, who now she's the one who goes to work once in a while. She, she works for Scandinavian Airlines,
Oh,
so
wow. Yeah.
she flies
No
off.
wonder,
But that,
no wonder you look so healthy.
Yeah. More relaxed lifestyle. That's a
you
good
know,
thing.
I
Okay.
had to learn to relax, and I'm learning. But we go to operas, we go to concerts, we go to the theater, and it's something I never had time for. But she said, "Well, Simply Red is coming June something. Robbie Williams is coming to Copenhagen also. I've bought tickets, and this is like in October. I've never been able to make
Plan.
schedule for something that was more than 2 weeks out."
Yeah.
Right.
Because you always know, I once bought a subscription to Hollywood Bowl. They always have great things. I bought, I think it cost $4,000 for a booth with 4 seats and then 4 performances. I didn't get to go to one of them. Not
Always. I can't
classic.
remember. Did you? I can't remember. Did you have an Airstream that you used to bring? Was you the director that brought it? Who brought the Airstream? Wasn't there a director that brought an Airstream with him to work out of?
That was Coppola.
Coppola. I know Coppola used to do it, but I think someone on Band of Brothers did it as well, didn't they? One of the directors. Can you remember, Matthew?
I haven't heard of it.
No,
It was
don't
a
remember an Airstream.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
Uh,
it was a good one.
Could they have brought it from the US or?
Yeah. I
Oh
can't
wow.
remember. Maybe I'm mistaken on that.
I think
But
Dougie had late nights out on the town, man. I think he's just remembering things that
yeah,
didn't.
exactly. I think I remember things a little bit differently. I think for us, it was just nuts because obviously there's a huge group of guys that, just thrown together. And obviously we did the boot camp thing, which kind of bonded us. But it was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of overwhelming, really.
I know, and the interesting thing is, I followed that at Disney. I was never really um, pursuing it, but I can see now how what an impact the show has had on a lot of people. Not just us doing it, but a lot of people have commented on it. And it came on Netflix here not that long ago, and it was like a whole new audience. And people said, "You did that," and I saw your name, and then yeah, that's 25 years ago. But the thing is, the show doesn't age.
Yeah.
No, no. It's just it's you guys just well, I guess we all did just an amazing job of it. It's just pretty much a high point as things go.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, listen, Mikael, we've had you for about an hour. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think I'm going to let you go back to your love life, your burgeoning, beautiful love life. You're doing it.
I'm a lucky guy. Well, it was great talking to you guys. It really was, and you really haven't changed much. You have got glasses, but that's the only difference I really see. Maybe a little more like me.
Yeah, a little bit grey hair. Yeah. But Matthew really hasn't changed at all. He is really.
Oh, he hasn't.
Yeah.
He made the same deal as I did.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you ever come to Berlin, get in touch, and we'll have a coffee or something if you ever pass through.
So you're in Berlin now?
Yeah. I've been living here since I moved here in lockdown in 2020.
Oh, wow. I was just there with my son, my 18-year-old son. We drove through because he got a job a temp job in Prague. So I said, and he's never been in Europe before. Well, as a kid, a very small kid, he was here. But so we drove from Copenhagen down to Berlin and stayed there a couple of days, and had to see, Checkpoint Charlie and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then we drove to Krakow, so we could go to Auschwitz and take a look at that. And then I dropped him off in Prague, and then he worked there for 3 months for dear friends of mine that has a visual effects company that I worked with for years and years.
Yeah, so, Prague is I've worked out there many times. It's a nice place to work. There's a lot of filming going down there. There's good crews down there.
Yeah, it is. Are you guys working?
I'm not at the minute. Are you, Matt? You've been auditioning a bit recently, haven't you, Matthew?
Oh, not really. No, I don't really audition anymore. No, I do other things.
Yeah. No, I'm still in the game, but just taking some time out of it, really. Get back into it this year, but yeah, I think I've still been doing it for a while. Yeah. Managed to scrape a living for the best part.
But I fear, as I said, my son wanted to get into the movie business, but now he has second thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think the business has changed so much. It's bad. But we'll hope for the best. Eh?
Thanks. Listen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mikael. I wish you well. Take care.
Well.
Bye.
Wow, so great to see his face again. But it's just great to listen to him.
Yeah. We've had one that's got cool crashing helicopter stories. It's like that.
It's insane. And who knew that there's a connection between Band of Brothers and Call of Duty?
Yeah. I did want to ask him, but I didn't. What type of chores do you give your kid to do around the house if you're paying $12,000 a month college fees?
Yeah. Build the house, I think. Yeah, I want a two-car carport built there with drainage and a bathroom and a gym in the corner. Now get to it. Yeah, that'll be me.
That's mad, isn't it?
Oh, he's had to earn some money, isn't he, to pay for that? My word. Wow.
Yes.
That's working all the time. But they're both coming to the end of their college career is
it's a relief about that.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, we'll say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to our Patreons. As always, that was a pretty darn cool interview. Got a bunch more coming up. Thanks for listening. I'll say goodbye, Dougie. I love you, man. And we'll see you next week.
See you later. Cheers.
Bye.